Hello everybody, it's your non-binary pal Regis E.V. here, and one of my special interests / hyperfixations is of D&D. I've been playing it for a while through different campaigns and different types of D&D-like games, and I've played a lot of different characters, and haven't played, but we'll get to that. And I really want to share them here, so I made an art series featuring each one. Let's get started with one of my first characters I've ever played, Clement, who is a tiefling artificer who specializes in elemental machinery. If you've been on my channel for a long time, you might actually remember this name as one I gave to a Genshin Impact fan OC I made a long time ago. I cannot remember why I chose to base them off of that character for the life of me though. I've actually wanted to draw them in a similar drawing to this for a long time, so this was the perfect art series to do. This one took quite a bit longer since I also decided to draw the background that I would be using for all of these here while working on the first sketch. For the background, I drew and rendered it like stained glass with grayscale so I could adjust the colors for each, and this is the closest I think I've ever gotten to an actual stained glass window effect in my rendering. After doing the sketch, I put it in a separate canvas and started on the line art. I adjusted some things with the line art and then changed the colors of the background to an orange scene. This leads to the rendering as a whole being pretty orange, but that makes sense for a warm tiefling character. Clement lived in one of the more advanced cities in this world and worked under a tech company. They started working on new inventions, which almost got them in trouble. One of their experiments led to a huge explosion that left them scarred and disabled, but it was a success, leading to great strides in the combination of magic and tech, specifically with the elements. They became a renowned and famous inventor after this, and have been traveling the world for more tech-related stuff ever since. Personality-wise, they are quite arrogant and sassy and very dedicated to their work. They hate having their work interrupted or looked down on, and they tend to hold grudges. They love testing out all kind of elements in their work, especially the explodey kind. Their main starting tools are a walking stick, which also doubles as a taser, an ice golem, which is meant mainly for defense, which I always imagine to be comedically small, and some good old bombs. They also are a huge hoarder, taking and storing anything they think will be useful. For Clement's design, I wanted them to be a pink tiefling with some yellow and orange elements thrown in. On their skin, it's mostly pink with a little bit of yellow fading on the horns, ears, and tail, and they also have a yellow scar on their neck. And they have some freckles as well that are a little light yellow. Their eyes are orange, and then the other one is just completely black, which is how I would imagine blindness in tieflings would be represented, because tieflings typically have black scleras. For their hair is one of my favorite parts of their design. I wanted it to be spiky and kind of give off a very spiky edge look, and have it be split half and half white and half darker red. I think this looks really cool. Half and half hair always gives mad scientist vibe, and I think that works really well here. And then for their outfit, it's supposed to be a mix of a suit and scientist gear, engineering gear. So they have a very tuxedo-like coat top thing with a shirt underneath, but then they also have suspenders and a belt with their bombs on it, some heavy gloves, and some straps on their legs, which I imagine are maybe guns or engineering stuff. Later on in campaigns I've played with them, they do get guns, but yeah, those would probably be where they hold those. And this is also where I add in a bunch of orange, as well as their walking stick, which also has some orange in it, and their eyes are also orange. I think I already said that. But yeah, I like their design a lot. It's a very distinguished mad scientist vibe. So it's very good, and I simplified it over the years to actually be able to draw. So yeah. Now let's talk about Sky. For them, I sketched out a strong-looking pose and had a bit of a hard time with the arms for some reason. I copied and pasted the background, and actually the foreground as well, into a new canvas. After I did the line art, I had a lot of trouble choosing the colors for the background. I knew I wanted to have a warm theme, but with Sky's more varied color scheme, it was hard to get the balance of colors right, but I eventually got it. Once I did, I kept the rendering colors the same, and this whole piece has a bit more of a salmon pinkish color ring to it. Sky is a barbarian high elf with a rough and strong attitude. They'll never back down from a fight, and they're definitely not afraid to get their hands dirty. They can seem off-putting to some, but to the right group, they're very friendly and lively. They're definitely not like a typical elf at all, and this is the reason why. Sky was once a mage student learning the ways of magic. Their college was next to a village, and they would often take trips there with their teacher. They would make friends with the humans, but the next time they went, most of them had died of old age or by other means. This happened again and again. Sky even tried using magic to prevent this from happening, but it didn't work. They hated that everyone and everything around them continued to change, but they didn't. So they decided to leave the College of Magic and began traveling the world looking for change for themselves. They decided to start training for combat and eventually became a warrior. Now they love visiting taverns and fighting goblins and other monsters, and they've become a very renowned fighter across the land. Sky's design, I'm going to be completely honest, was very inspired by Cloud a little bit, but also like Final Fantasy aesthetics in general. So yeah, that's where a lot of their design elements come from, including the fact that they have a great sword. But other than that, some of its parts of it are original. They have a bunch of scars on them, which they proudly show off. I feel like in Elven culture, they would probably look down on that, but they're like, nah, I got scars. Look at them. Look at how tough I am. Yeah, their hair is super fun. It's like a spiky updo, kind of long-ish style, which is kind of like a blonde-ish, like a orangey blonde color. Their whole color scheme is supposed to be a sort of sunrise-esque color scheme. And fun fact, when I was actually designing them, I do actually remember that I had a really hard time deciding what I wanted their color scheme to be, but I eventually ended up on this, and I think it looks really good. Those are also pretty roughed up and tattered, and they have a cool scarf on them. Now that I look at it, I think there are some similarities between their design and Clement's, just a little bit. That might have been unintentional, but yeah. And they also have these cool headpiece thing. I'm not sure why I added those. I think it just looks cool. And they also have freckles too. I think there was a lot more inspiration of Clement than I realized in their design. So yeah, as you can see, the whole premise is a species type and class type that are rarely played together, since stereotypically they're quite different. And I actually have done this for a couple of their characters aside from Sky here. Now for my most recent character, Fog. I haven't actually played them yet, but they are a full-on character that I really wanted to draw and talk about, so here we are. For their artwork, I struggled quite a bit with the pose, drawing a bunch of thumbnails before feeling like I picked the right one, and even then I had some trouble with it. I also had a bit of difficulty sketching their violin. At first I was thinking of green for the background, but then I decided to go for pink with yellow to contrast, which did wonders for the rendering, making this one of my favorites of the lineup. Fog is a half-orc glamour bard. They were made with the same idea that Sky was. Fog lived in a toxic environment for a long time, constantly being pressured to become a fighter and to conform. By age 21, they ran away to live in nature, and it's here they met with the local druids. They gave him a home and a place where he could truly be himself. One day, he finds an ancient and special violin, which he quickly learns to play and wield the magic of a bard. He lived in the forest for many years, but one day he had a run-in with an evil fae, who tried to possess him in order to escape beyond the Feywilds. Although it didn't work, part of the fae's magic still lives within Fog, and they have to be extremely careful as to not let it engulf them. Fog is extremely kind and soft and loves sharing their music with others, especially if it helps comfort them, and they love to look pretty. They love nature and the forest so much that many actually mistaken them to be a druid, and to be fair, they lived with druids for a long time, but he is in fact a bard. For Fog's design, I wanted it to be very pretty, and yeah, this was interesting to design. When I was first coming up with this character, I had envisioned them to be a bit more of a stereotypical bard sort of vibe, but when designing them and getting reference pictures for them, I ended up going in this direction where it was more like very nature-loving, almost princess-esque look, and yeah, their hair is super long and fluffy, which is always super fun to draw, and they do have these cool sheer skirt and jacket combo, and they also have the cool like boot almost things on their legs, and a couple of other dark colored accessories. Their color palette was really fun to choose. I went with a big like warm color scheme, and I ended up doing that with figuring that out with some overlay layers, and they ended up having a much warmer color scheme than intended. For like example, their skin, I don't think I've ever used this shade of green ever, but I really like how it looks here with the rest of it, so I've kept it that way. And their hair is a super like very fun pink to pink gradient, like a warmer pink on top to a cooler pink on bottom. Yeah, but I always love adding that. And they also have some makeup, some pink makeup on them. Their whole color scheme is like green, yellow, pink. That's their whole color scheme, and I really like it. And they also have some dots around their eyes, as well as a pink sclera, which is supposed to represent the Fae side part of them that they still have going on. So yeah, this one is fun to draw. Oh, and they also have a violin, which I've talked about before, and I don't know why I chose a violin. I think I just wanted to choose a weapon that was more unique to a bard, and yeah, violin is an option a bard can have, so I decided to do that for them. Plus, I've always loved how violin sounds, so yeah. And I used Clip Studio assets to design it and to draw it, but yeah, I really like how it looks. And I like how they look like a druid, like you would expect them to be a druid, but no, they're a bard. Yeah, a druid-esque bard. That's their whole vibe. Now it's time for another character I have not played yet, but I really want to, Blake. Blake is a drow warlock, and they have become one of my favorites. Their artwork was oh so really fun to work on. It ended up being the most blue out of these, so it stands out a little, but that makes sense for their character. The pose was a lot easier to choose on this one, so the sketching and everything went super easy. Since their hair is super blue and the background is too, I was debating whether I wanted to include their eye color, which is yellow, more into the background so that it doesn't blend in too much. But after trying it out, I decided to stick to blue mostly, but have their eye be glowing to include some yellow highlights on the character themselves. That's what I did for the rendering, and I think it turned out great. I also added more stars on this one, since they're very space themed. Blake lived in a highly religious place of clerics, and they were always treated as an outcast. They felt trapped and wanted to escape, but was never allowed to leave. One day, they were greeted by their soon-to-be patron, who offered them freedom if they stole a special artifact, a staff, which they continued to use afterwards. Once they stole it, they were caught and almost killed by the clerics, but their patron's pact with Blake was complete, allowing them to fight back and escape. One of the clerics is still after them for revenge, without Blake knowing, but now they live as a traveling warlock. They often hide the fact that they are a warlock to not alarm people. Blake is extremely cunning and mischievous, with a mysterious but seductive nature, and they always seem to have something going on in the background. They're also extremely flirty and has a special skill of being able to get people's guards down pretty easily. Their ultimate goal is to ascend and become one with their beloved Patreon. For Blake's design, I wanted it to be very space themed because I imagine their Patreon is a sort of space-like entity. So for their hair, I gave them these hair floaty things that I tend to do for my characters, kind of Genasi-esque, but no distinguishable element. And they also have light horns and sparkles and markings on their skin. These all come from their Patreon. I like to imagine anyway that when it comes to warlocks and their patrons, that whatever Patreon they have made a pact with, part of their essence or magic kind of develops onto them. And this is what happened to Blake. They look like this now because of their Patreon. They also have, I would also think maybe their light blue hair is a result of this as well, because I think drows typically have white or gray hair rather than colored hair. And yeah, they also have these nice flowing robes, which are mostly blue, but I also gave them yellow accents to pop against the blue. Their staff was fun to draw. It was very moon themed, obviously again with the space with a lot of swirls on it. And yeah, I also gave them a yellow eye, like I said before, also to pop against the rest of the blues. I've been drawing them a lot since I designed them. They're very fun for me to draw. They're one of my favorites. They also have freckles. Now I think about it, I've given almost all my D&D characters freckles of some kind so far. That's kind of funny. Now for Shard. Shard is not from the base D&D game, but an alternative one that's more sci-fi inspired. In this game, you get to choose what type of species you want to create from a base, and then you can be super creative with making it original for your character. I chose a base species that allowed me to create the Shattered, which is a species based entirely on the term smoke and mirrors. Their bodies are whiskey smoke, and they create a humanoid exoskeleton with a special crystal. With those things in mind, I knew this was going to be a very interesting character to render. It was a bit difficult to decide what elements of the line art I wanted to keep separate, since their hair is made of smoke, but their body isn't. And before I would go to the rendering, I colored in the background, and for the whole thing, I went with the pastel rainbow palette for everything here, which I think ends up looking really cool. For rendering the body, I tried to make it look glossy and shiny, and for the hair, whiskey with tones of gray, and their accessories more solid. Their eyes are also rendered in a glossy way as well. I haven't drawn this character in a while, so this was also a partial redesign, and I really like how it turned out. I've already talked about their design a little bit with the concept of smoke and mirrors, but yeah, they have a smoky exterior and a pretty broken crystalline body. So part of their smokiness shows through in their hair at the top and also on the insides. And yeah, Shard has a couple of broken limbs, but instead of just falling apart because of their smoky interior, it actually holds them together. So you can see where their limbs are broken, you can see some of that smokiness there. And I've also included a rib cage thing in the very center, which didn't always used to look like that, but I decided to make it look like a rib cage to be more edgy and to make more sense with the design. And you can see some of the smokiness in there as well. They also have very sharp teeth, which might have been like filed into that or something, I'm not quite sure. And they have a broken side of their face, but the other side of the face actually has two eyes, with one of them being lower underneath. So yeah, kind of very mangled character. They're not all put together quite well, but they also have a sharp arm that they've carved to be sharper here. But they also have some fanciness to them. They have a necklace with a ring on it and some sheer fabrics on them, and these cool like shoulder guard things and some earrings to sort of reference back to their old life and to give them a bit more of an elegant vibe, which I sort of imagine this whole species has. Shard's backstory is a bit more complex and one that I've been developing a bit more for a different project. Just as far as like a summary goes, they were one of the higher nobles in their culture, and their society looked down on falling in love with other races, but they haven't had a partner from another species, and they even married them. But when the other nobles found out, they killed them, which drove Shard to insanity, and they ended up breaking and killing everyone who was involved, breaking their own body in the process. After this, they became a sort of deadly assassin that many people are afraid of. They're very unstable and hostile and a bit of a sadist, but they do still have some of their old passionate self left. which it tries not to show too much of at times. And finally, for one I have talked about before, Kenta. I made this artwork of Kenta a while ago, and I still really like it, but I wanted to draw him again here. I have drawn Kenta tons over the years because I really love his design, but for some reason, I really struggled with the line art on this one, so it took me quite a while. But I had a much easier time with the background because I just used an overlay layer for the entire thing rather than recoloring each layer like I had been doing before. Rendering this very much reminded me of working on that first piece of him. You can go watch that video if you want to see the process of that artwork. I also like this a lot since it's the most red and striking in its own way. Now, Kenta's also interesting backstory-wise because I am currently in the process of rewriting that as well. He never really had a solid backstory all that much, but I did talk about him a little bit in the first video I made of him. I don't actually remember if what I said then, I don't even actually remember if I went into backstory much or if I just went into personality. But personality-wise, he's very punky, he's very rock punk vibe, he has a pretty big temper, and he can seem off-putting and a little much to other people at first, but he's also a very loyal person. If he has his people, he will be very loyal to them, and yeah, that's basically him in a nutshell. And I've been still trying to develop him more because he's one of my oldest D&D characters, but I feel like I don't have him that well established yet. Oh, and by the way, he also comes from a not D&D-esque game. He's from a different style that one of my family members has actually developed before. I also talked about Kenta's design in that last video, but I thought I'd go over it again. His design is very punk rock inspired, very 80s rock inspired. He has black and white hair, black and red all throughout his design. Very gender non-conforming too, so it's pretty femme as well. And yeah, he is based on a specific Japanese yokai, which is actually this big skeleton that eats people. That was his whole concept that was based on. So he has some yokai-like horns, but also skeleton markings all over them. He's got ones on his torso, arms, legs, and on his face as well. So he looks really cool, and I've always loved his design. And like I said, I draw him a lot outside of this drawing as well. He's just super fun, and I love his black, white plus red color combo. It's very fun. And if you want to hear a bit more about the design process, you can watch that first video because that's where I first designed him. So yeah, that is all of these artworks here. This was super fun to do, or these artworks were super fun to draw anyway. This video was a little bit challenging to write in script, but that's okay. And as you can tell, some of it wasn't scripted. But hopefully that wasn't too obvious. If you like this video, you can be sure to like it. It is my last video for 2025, which is cool. Next week is 2026. So technically, I will see you in the next year because it'll be next week. That's a fun joke. I'm sure you've never heard of it before. This is your first time hearing it. And yeah, like I said, all of my other stuff is in the description below, as well as my comics and all of that. And you'll probably see these characters again because I love them a lot and I love drawing them and doing stuff with them. So yeah, thank you again as always to Jibbs Rat for supporting me on Patreon. More to come in the next year. I want to add more stuff to my shop and all that. So let me know if, what you'd like me to add into the shop, if you will. I might add these artworks as prints into my shop because that'd be cool. So yeah, let me know if you'd want to see that. And yeah, that is all from me. I will see you in the next video. Bye!